Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Historical Humans Reacts. And today we've got another really interesting article, this time coming out of Mexico, where they reportedly found an 8,000-year-old skeleton in an underwater cave. So, what are your thoughts on this one, boys?
It's not a bog body. Come on.
Yes.
Anyone in the field of archaeology loves a good bog body. If it's in the water, no, I'm kidding. This is always cool. This stuff's like always cool. But uh, fun fact: archaeologists don't always work at the skeleton. So we'll
No.
leave this to bioarchaeology.
Yeah. I do find it fun with this article because of the delay between news releases and archaeological finds. There's often a lot of information on, say, the body found, and this one there's not. There's no cause of death. There's no information on disease. They don't know the sex of the skeleton. They don't even know how big it is. They just know they've got a hold of it.
Oh, wait,
That
you
makes
missed
this
a
feel very
controversial point right here. Archaeologists don't always know the sex of a skeleton.
Honestly, it's also kind of standard practice to just not even to not really assume anyway without context clues. Like
yeah, but
usually
just
if it's a burial, you might be able to assume.
yeah,
Emphasis on assume.
yeah. It's just usually when you see a lot of these, they tend to be released with a lot of information of, it was a biologically male, mid 30s to early 40s with skeletal trauma. Like you usually see a lot of that information, and this feels like it's a much more recent discovery just by the fact that that information is not included, that this post lab analysis it has not been included in the article. It feels like we're getting at this a little bit earlier than what we usually get to see.
Quite
Yeah.
literally, the article cites the lead investigator's personal Facebook post as a
Well,
source for the information.
That's always fun.
well, it also says if you just scroll a little bit down, um, Del Rio said that the laboratory analysis would determine such details after the remains have been removed from the cave. Quote, a long study that could last months or years starts now. So literally this is the start of like all the analysis that's going to take. So this could yeah, this
That's,
could last
that,
months. This could take years easy.
yeah, and that's why this one feels especially exciting to me is because usually when we see these articles be released, it's after all of that months and years of archaeological, lab analysis. And this feels like this actually happened, recently and isn't just, something from 2 years ago that we're now letting come to light so that, we've already cleared the place for looters.
I do.
Also, I think it's interesting that like this cave, like the bones survived underwater in this cave because depending on the quality of the water or whatever else is in there, the water could have decayed the bones as
So
well.
it is a good point that you're bringing that up, and it's very interesting too because at this part of the world, at this part of Mexico, it actually was fairly common one to do sacrifices into these cenotes where they would literally just throw human sacrifices in and a bunch of like jade and other valuable metals and like offerings. But then also in this term, this predates that by quite a bit. This is interesting because at the point when this girl was alive, the cave was actually wasn't underwater. It was above water, parts of it. So it's in all likelihood it's a probability that she lived in the cave. But this part of the ocean doesn't decay bodies as quickly as what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Especially to preserve it for 8,000 years. It probably was pretty deep, deeper than most things can get at. Like they said, the cenotes could go anywhere from 50 meters deep to 800 at certain points.
Mhm.
They also say that this is the 11th discovery of human remains in the area. Well, ancient human remains in the area. So that's also interesting. So that means this is a common place for if this is an actual burial, if that this is a commonplace for bear. I mean, I guess in the grand scheme of things, 11 doesn't sound that big, but that's just 11 bodies that we have found. So again, anything can happen. Like bones don't just stay in the ground forever. They also decay like the rest of our bodies. Sometimes they just take longer.
And let's be honest, this is what 8,000 years ago minimum. So that's
Minimum.
8,000 years for 11 bodies to survive. If there's 11 bodies there after 8,000 or more years, there was a hell of a lot more at one point.
And also, the other thing that we kind of glanced over that's really important to talk about is the fact that if this was a purposeful burial, and if there were multiple remains of similar age in similar situations, there could be a sign of certain cultural traditions of burying within these caves because they may have been away from where the people lived, or it could have just been a good location to bury the bodies, but it shows purposeful interment, and that's a pretty good gauge of a culture's position.
Yeah. Yeah, the ability to take the time to seriously care for and tend to the dead is usually a sign of a stable and developed culture with not a lot of major insecurities and threats to its existence.
So, what else is what? Yeah, so they mention within this article that, of course, the construction company is a bit peeved because they're being forced to move their train line away from the initial pathway.
Yeah.
That's
Because
actually a good point to bring up, though, is that a lot of archaeology in the modern era isn't these Indiana Jones grand adventures. A lot of it's done before construction takes place just to make sure nothing gets destroyed. And clearly, in this case, they found something incredible.
Yeah, and
the construction company actually decided to report it.
Yeah, well, that's
well,
another
the
issue.
the archaeologists reported it. What gets me is the construction company and all of this. The reason the rail line is being built into this area and they're searching this area is because the business park didn't want it going parallel to the highway. They felt that would cut the cities in two, and it wouldn't, would divide the city instead of bring prosperity to it. And they cut down all the trees leading down the route they were going to take. And then they
Well,
found this. So there's really it's just quite a funny comedy of errors because now they have to go down the original route parallel to the highway that they didn't want in the first place.
and that's another issue, like infrastructure and preserving history. So this will probably be depending. There are apparently the article also speaks of critics speaking out against the construction in general. So this is one of those situations of where urban development versus
Yeah.
historical preservation and environmental preservation as well, because they've already cut down the jungle, but it's also the the Mayan jungles. That stuff will grow back pretty quick anyway. But the fact that they've already done that damage is like is
Yeah, it's additional deforestation to an area that's already experiencing unknown levels of deforestation.
And I've lived around construction projects in forested area. That wood that they chopped down did not go to use. More often than not, it's ground up into mulch and spat back on the floor, or just straight up burned. I've seen entire 50, 60 acres of dense woodland just chopped and torched in a matter of weeks.
Yeah, because a lot of times it's not worth the money to haul it somewhere to be processed versus
Yeah,
just destroying in
it's
place.
it's cheaper to destroy this resource after you've already harvested it than it is to make anything useful from it, and
Yeah.
that hurts me on so many levels.
like if you're gonna destroy if you're gonna tear down a section for anything, you might as well turn it into a resource. But instead, you just destroy it because you don't make a profit off of
Yeah,
it.
because it's cheaper to burn it than it is to haul it off to a paper mill and turn it into paper, or
Yep.
give it to IKEA and have it become someone's ottoman.
Yeah, so they're not even cutting down these trees for profit. They're just cutting them down because they're in the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But on that glorious bombshell, I think that's a good point for us to wrap up here. If you guys enjoyed this episode, be sure to drop a like down below. If there's a specific topic that you would like to see us cover, leave a comment down below, let us know, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. We'll
Yeah,
see.
because there could be an update to this video.
Oh,
More
spoilers.
info.
And if you think Justin has some pent-up aggression with all of his bombing at the end of all these videos, type glorious bombshell in the comment section below so we know you made it all the way and that you are listening to me.
And we'll see you guys next week.